Hi everyone and welcome to part 5 of our third-person character tutorial series, and I'm Kieran Oversapien for Filmstorm Studios, and we're going to get started right now. And this lesson we're going to actually be turning this guy into an actual character that will walk around and do stuff instead of sitting there and taking it like in our previous lesson. So we can actually walk up and deliver damage to him and get our sweet combo that we set up before. So look at how good that looks. So one thing that we might want to quickly fix up is, if we focus on it, our sword length, just to make it a little bit easier for our player to swing and hit stuff. So there we go. That is wonderful. So let's jump out of here and let's get started on creating our enemy prefab. So I downloaded from the Unity asset store, and you should be able to too, this guy called Robot Kyle, and he's just a little normal guy, and he has a full biped structure already set up inside him like my other character. So all we need to really do is jump in and pretty much from our dummy copy our health FSM that we created, drop this in here. But actually first, let's go to our rig and change it to humanoid. So this will work with our animations now. And you'll notice it put an animated controller, which we will fix up later. So we've got our health system in there. Now let's drag our hit body detector and let's move this guy. Let's grab the bottom and move him into a reasonable position. Perfect. Let's drag it in and make it a little bit wider, because it's not like the player will be touching him close to close, like face to face. So let's make it kind of in the center of his body and move it forward, so then we can put our hit back detector on him as well. So let's drag our back hit body and drag it up into our Robot Kyle. And let's set it in behind him. Make it about the same width backwards and drag it there. Alright, so now you'll see we have our front and our back hit detection. Let's make it a little bit taller and a little bit taller. Perfect. That is lovely. Now let's drag our canvas up to Robot Kyle. And let's just position this guy above him. Whoop, dragged it again. And let's drag this guy. We can scale this guy down just so we have a visual idea of what's happening. We could even make it a little bit straighter. And that's pretty much all we've done from the dummy. We can turn dummy off and let's get started on creating a simple animation system for our enemy. So all we need to do is come to our assets, create a new animated controller, and we're going to call this enemy movement system. Perfect. Now let's go to Robot Kyle and drag our enemy movement system into our controller slot, and let's change both of these to animate, always animate. Alright, so let's jump into our enemy movement, and we're just pretty much going to do what we did last time. We'll create an idle, and let's drag this guy in, and we're going to actually right mouse click and create a new blend tree. So let's rename this guy first to movement, dive in to our blend tree, and let's quickly set up two parameters. We're going to set a float, input X. This is exactly what we did for our player, input Z. Perfect, and let's drag in our idle. We need to create some slots first. So let's make just a few. That should be plenty. Let's create a 2D Cartesian. Input X and input Z. Now let's drag our idle in at 0, 0. Now let's create a run forward. There we go, run forward loop. That should be perfect. And that's going to be positive Y. And run backward. Where is our run backward loop? There we go. That's going to be -1. Now we're going to look for run right loop. So this is our run left and right. So left is -1 and right is +1. So now you'll see we have our enemy all set up. We can run backwards. He can run to the left. He can run forwards. He can run to the right, and he can run backwards. Perfect. All right, so let's save that. We could speed each one up. Let's speed up each loop by 1.2, so that way he'll move a little tiny bit quicker, but it will help in the end. Let's get rid of this last motion slot. All right, so that's all set up. Now let's jump back to our scene, and you'll notice when we press play now, he'll just go into his default idle animation. So he's just chilling there. And if we do this, but our health was actually looking at the old character. So let's jump into here. Let's jump into health. It's pointing to dummy. So let's point this guy to Robot Kyle. Perfect. Let's check hit body detector. So this is looking at dummy. Let's look at a Robot Kyle. And same as this guy, Robot Kyle. And that should be pretty perfect. That's everything else. So now when we press play, it should say 10, perfect. And there we go. So now we're delivering damage to Robot Kyle. And Robot Kyle is dead. All right, so let's now create some sort of system that will basically handle Kyle moving around. So since we're going to be creating a navigation space, let's get that set up first. So the main thing with navigation areas is that you want to make sure it's all set to static. So anywhere you want enemies to move around, you want it set static. So this object we placed in, so let's make sure this is static. Then go up to your navigation. If you can't see this, go to window and then navigation. And let's just click bake. And that is as fast as that. And now everywhere where it's blue is where our little dude can run around. And that's perfect. Alrighty, so let's jump back here. So that's all set up. Now let's go to Playmaker, add-ons, and our ecosystem. You can find this just by looking online just for the Playmaker ecosystem and then just import it into Unity. And let's look at path finding. So this is our little package that we can use for our enemy to find us. And let's just click get. And this will just take a couple of seconds and it will import, and we'll just say import, and it will just compile for a second, and then we'll be good to go. All right, so we're all set up. So now let's go back to Robot Kyle, and we're going to call this a new one called movement. So this is going to handle his movement. So our first task that we want him to do is find player. Perfect. And we're going to say game object. We're going to say player. And we're going to say find game object with the tag player. So let's double check our player has our tag set as player. All right, so that's all set up. So Robot Kyle will find our guy with player, and we're going to store that as game object. Once that's done, I'm going to say finished and go to an idle state. So he'll just be chilling there by himself. And we're going to say set animator float. So this is our movements that we set up as input X and input Y, or input Z, sorry. So input X as 0 every frame. Or actually, don't have it every frame. That's a bit pointless. I need to set it once. And input Z. So this is going to say he's idling, so don't let him move anywhere. Just let him stay where he is. And now we're going to say found player. So this is just a very simple AI system to start off with. We don't want to make it overly complicated. And we're going to say smooth. Or actually, we don't want the enemy to be looking at the player, because that would just be creepy when you're walking around and the enemy's just rotating. Let's instead create an empty object. Zoom in and let's attach it to his head, just in front of his head. And we're going to call this Raycast look for player. Now with this Raycast look for player, this is going to be shooting a little ray that will be looking for our player system. So let's go into it and create a new FSM. We're just going to call this look at player. Pretty much as simple as that. And all we're going to do is the same setup that we did for our other one. We're going to find the player quickly. So let's just say find player and say find game object. We're going to find the player object and store that in player, and that's finished and done. All right, now we're going to say look at, or smooth look at, smooth look at. And we're going to be smooth looking at the player that we just found in the previous one. So we're going to be calling this look at player. And we're going to say finish is 0. We never want it to finish. Its speed can be 5, and we want to keep it vertical so it doesn't look up or down. If you actually unclick this, it will be pointing at her feet, which is a problem that is a bit hard to fix until we get more complicated, and then there's other workarounds. But it takes quite a while to fix that up. So that should be perfect. Now you'll notice that when we press play and we turn on this guy, and I'll run over here, let's jump back to our scene, and then you'll see that this forward Z is actually pointing directly at our player, which is what we want. Perfect. Now let's jump back to Robot Kyle in our movement, and all we're going to be doing is raycasting. Raycast. We're going to be raycasting in the positive Z, so make it 1, from position, actually from our game object of our raycast look for player. We're going to say debug. We want to let him see about 100 in front, and on hit, we're going to say store the hit object as testing, test player found. So this is going to basically, whatever the raycast touches, we're going to be testing if the player was found in that touch, if that makes sense. So let's store the hit object as test player found. And all we want to do is go to game object compare. And, not that compare, we want compare tag, because we're basically comparing it if it's the player. And let's compare player found. We're going to compare it to player tag. If this is true, we're going to say move towards player. Perfect. Now let's say hook in that transition and put it towards the state. And we're going to say if it's true, move towards player every frame. All right, this is looking great. So now that we have found the player, let's pretty much compare this again, raycast this, and copy these two over into this guy. So say move towards player. So we're still raycasting, and then if for some reason we lose sight of our player, we're going to say finished. So if an object comes in between the enemy and the player, he's going to lose sight of us and then stop moving. Alrighty, so that's perfect. Now all we need to do now is set up our pathfinding solution. So let's just jump into let's get rid of everything, and let's go to nav mesh agent. And we're going to say set destination as a game object. This is really cool because now we can just go destination is our player, and that is pretty much it. And then we're going to say copy and paste this into idle, so when he's not moving, he doesn't have a destination. It is none. Perfect. So now let's save that and let's press play. So when it's actually shooting a little bit high, so let's just move down our raycast. Let's move it down to about there. Perfect. So let's see what's happening with Robot Kyle. Let's jump into his movement. Alrighty, so he's comparing if what he's hitting is our player. So let's see what he's actually, what the raycast is saying in what is, oops. So we just need to create a nav mesh agent, so we just have to click that. And that's fine to say he doesn't have a destination. So let's see, there we go. So now he's moving forward towards us. So he's gonna follow us around. So now all we really need to do is link in our animations that we set up for him. So he'll follow us up here. That's pretty good. All right, that's perfect. It's all okay to start off with. And if for some reason you didn't want to use the navigation, you can always just set look at and then drive the animation yourself. But for now, this should be perfect. So we're going to look up agent. There should be some sort of set speed in here. So let's look up, what do we got? Let's get agent maximum speed. Nav mesh. Oh, actually, let's just set up this other. All right, let's get rid of these two destination objects, and we're going to do something a little bit different. So let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's just say look at, or smooth look at the player. So now we're just going to make his whole system turn and look at the player now. And we're going to make the speed at 5. That should be perfect. And we're going to make it finish. And we're just going to say input or set animator float, which is we're going to drive him towards input Z. We're going to drive him towards the player. So we're going to make it 1. So if you press play now, you'll notice once he finds us, he's gonna try and get to us. So he's running around behind us now. All right. So instead of having this the smooth look, let's maybe change this to just a straight look at. That might fix the problem that we're facing. Just have it a straight look at in our Raycast system. That should be perfect. All right, let's click play. There you go. Now you'll see that he's actually just straight on following us. And because his animation's a little bit quicker than us, we can make him a little bit slower so we can outrun him. So let's make this maybe 0.9 instead of our estimated 0 or 1.2. So let's make this 0.9. And now you'll see he'll run a little bit slower and we should be able to outrun him. And then we can actually swing some hits, and we hit him in behind him somehow. I think we hit the trigger that was behind him. So now we just need to set some intelligence up for him that will say stop when he's at a certain distance. So let's make it, he'll stop at around 3 units in front of us. So let's go to Robot Kyle and go to movement. And we're going to say get distance. And we're going to get the distance between us and the player. We're going to store that as a float. We're going to say distance to player. Perfect. And we're going to store that as this, and we're going to do a float comparison. And we're going to say if the distance to player is equal or less than 3, or equal or less than 3, we're going to say it's finished. So when the player is far enough away, or like when he's close in on the player, he'll stop running so he doesn't run straight up and into us. So let's pretty much copy and paste this. So he's going to go to finished, and let's create another one. So if he is, let's make it 6. If he is equal or greater than 6, we're going to say go towards the player. So that should be perfect. And we're going to set input Z as 0 because we don't want him to move any closer. He's just going to stay where he is. And then if the player goes out of sight, where is this one? So if the test player is found, we're pretty much, test player is found. If he can't be seen, we're going to send it back to idle. So to idle, let's just create another one. And we're going to pop this in here and then drag this guy into here. So if you can't see the player anymore, he's going to go back here. If the player comes back into out of his range, he'll start going after him again, if that makes sense. So let's test this out. So he'll get to a certain range and then he'll stop. See, he's in his range now. There we go. So we took him down. So let's just try that again. So he's actually, he's kind of, he's glitching out a little bit, but that's just because of our float values. They might be a little bit too far out for him. So what we could always do is stop that and then drag these guys into maybe 0.8. It's always, once you tinker with the values a little bit, it makes it like less glitchy than it was. So 0.8, 0.8, 0.8. And now you'll notice that he shouldn't pop in and out as much. So it's a bit smooth, a little bit smoother. So now we can still run up and still deliver the damage. Alrighty. So maybe his back bodied hit detector is a little bit too large for us. So let's just scale this guy in and out. So you really have to come in for that stealth attack to get the good hit on him. Because really, if our sword swipes through, the sword swiping through and hitting the back. So we'll have to set up some sort of event that will stop. It will turn off one of the other hit detectors if one hit detector is being hit. Which will get a little bit more complicated later on. But I mean, apart from that, we're doing pretty well. We've got an enemy set up. So now let's quickly hook it into a prefab. So then later on we can actually reference in more enemies. So let's create a prefab and call this enemy and drag our little robot Kyle guy just straight into our enemy. It's perfect. You'll see his hit boxes everywhere. And now when we can just drag this guy out. Perfect. And drag this guy. And we can drag this guy. So now you'll notice we'll just get swamped by all of the enemies running in at us. And then it's pretty simple because then if you change one of the robot Kyles, it will actually affect all of the other robot Kyles. There we go. So we just took out a few of them. And I think I know the reason why this is being a little bit glitchy is because it's kind of hitting around her shoulder. So let's, we could always just come back to original robot Kyle. And let's open him up again. And let's just drag our look at Raycast down here. Let's just make it a little bit closer to him. So let's just see how this is going to be behaving. So yeah, he behaves a lot better. So let's click apply, and then that will update all of the positions for all of our other enemies. There we go. So we did that combo. So let's try and get this guy in. All right, come on. All right, that's it. Now we come in here. Perfect. And let's take out this guy. Alrighty. So that's pretty much been this quick tutorial on setting up that other artificial intelligence. It's still a little bit sketchy, but I'm sure with some more adjustments we can make it smooth out a lot more. But hopefully stay tuned for that in our next part, which is going to be part 6 of our third-person character tutorial series. So probably in that next lesson we'll be we'll fix up his jitteriness when he's moving towards us, as well as giving them all a weapon that can run up and deal damage to us. And then probably in the next series, in the next tutorial after that, we'll have to set up a block system for our character so she can actually not get damaged and slaughtered by about 50 people running at her. So that should be lovely. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this quite long tutorial. This has probably been going on for around 25 minutes. And thanks for checking this out and sticking around. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And I will see you guys in the next tutorial, which should be coming out very soon. Alright guys, see you then. And this has been Kieran Oversapien for Filmstorm Studios.